Hey guys, I'm Francois. Welcome to the Sound Design channel. Today we are looking at the lead sound of Consciousness with Wavetable, everything Ableton in the box. And basically the lead sound consists out of two instances of Wavetable. And we have this MIDI information being played. The main sound is this one here. And on top we are playing this sound. And notice how they are grouped. I'm turning those off for the moment. And also we are sending those into a bunch of Synth reverbs and an overdrive. And I'm also going to turn those off for the moment and we are going to blend them in a second. But let's quickly look at how the sound is set up. Okay, let's quickly turn off the filter and also turn off oscillator 2 and just look at oscillator 1. This one is a saw wave applied 69% and it's also set to FM mode here with a tune at -100. If we move around with the amount, we're getting these nasty options for the sound. We're leaving it at 0 for now, but this is where you can tweak the sound over time, for example. And now let's look at the amplifier. It's sitting at 6 milliseconds attack time, 600 decay, -infinity sustain, and 600 release. And we have a unison set to random note with 2 voices and an amount of 42. If we would set that to shimmer or something, it would sound like a beehive. And you set it to none. You have the sound in the center. So we set it to random note. So it's kind of jumping around a little bit. So let's activate oscillator 2. This one is also playing a sine wave, but we are getting 2 octaves down, so -24 semitones. Beefing up the sound. And now let's add in the filter here, low pass filter set to 12 decibels per octave, SMP filter type, and set the drive up to 8.6 decibels, resonance to 9%, and the frequency to a base frequency of 121. And now to actually have it sound like this, we still need to apply envelope number 2 on our filter, which is here already done. If I would turn it off, it sounded like this. So basically we are taking envelope number 2 with an attack time of 2 milliseconds, decay almost 600, sustain all the way down. And we are going to the matrix and we're saying, hey, envelope number 2 applied on the filter around 64%. So it's nicely opening up. It's not all the way though, which would sound like that. Another nice feature you can add in is go to LFO number 1, set it to a sine wave and put the amount from 100 to like 20%, and then apply it through the matrix also on your filter. So this will also make your filter move around a little bit more naturally. If you went back and played around with the amount now, very cool and interesting sound. Okay, so let's look at a bunch of the effects here. I'm skipping the frequency shifter for now because it's also nice and optional. First of all, we are kind of cleaning up the low end of the sound with this equalizer. Making sure to shape off stuff below 116 Hertz. Cutting out something around 500 Hertz, but this really depends on the notes you're playing. So don't focus too much on this. We're adding a little bit of a high shelf in the beginning here. Then we are sending that into a slight OTT in the standard setting, and we are just mixing that in 20%. Just ever so slightly to smoothen out the sound a little bit. And then in this case here, I used a surgical EQ to take out resonant parts of the frequencies triggered by these melodies here. If we play a different melody, our surgical EQ would have to look different, so you have to be careful with that, and let's not focus too much on it right now. We have a sidechain behind it, but it's actually going to be more interesting what happens to the sound now. We're also sending this right into 2 return channels, so let's quickly look at them. Activate the return channels here, and we are at E and F. E is this overdrive, and F is some delay type sound, so let's listen in with them. So that's the part played by this return channel here. It's a slight slap delay with 1 by 1 all the way up, a saturator with a hard curve and a little bit of erosion. This really adds in that sparkle on the sound, and we're sending that into a reverb with 2 seconds decay time. And then we're cleaning up with this EQ, just focusing on the high end. And then we are also sidechaining this to the signal of the main sound itself. And by that, we are ensuring it's only playing when the main sound characteristic has already gone through. So let's look at the F channel here, what's on that. So here we have a little bit of an 8x8 delay in the ping pong setting all the way up. And we're cleaning up the low end here, and again we're sidechaining to the sound itself. So these 2 sounds are applied, and then through the whole group that we are in with our lead, we are also sending it into return channel I, which is this one here. If we activate that one, and basically that's this large shimmer plate cleaning up the low end here, adding 11.6 seconds of decay time, and then cleaning up again, cleaning up the high end a little bit, adding a little bit of saturation, and then also compressing the signal to keep it a bit more evened out. And then again, we are sidechaining it to the lead sound itself. So this is what adds the characteristic to the sound if we play it all together. And now let's go back to the sound here and open up this frequency shifter just for fun. And we're setting the spread to -2 Hz, set it to wide and play around with the dry wet here. So you can add in a little bit of this phasing effect. So this part of the sound is really crucial to the sound. You can modulate that nicely over time and get this glitchy feel in. Something that also happens in the original track of Consciousness. And what we need now is a little bit of a top layer to sort of add in the shimmery parts. And that's another instance of Wavetable up here. Let's take a look at that sound as well. First without effects. So it's also combining 2 oscillators. Oscillator 1 again playing a saw wave here, and we have it again set to FM with tune at 0, but amount slightly up at 7%. I'm turning off the filter and the second oscillator so you can hear the raw sound. We again have 3 voices here with random note, and the amount is set to 13%. Our amplifier is sitting at 2 milliseconds attack time. Decay is being automated at the moment, can also be automated over time. So if you take it shorter, could also be an interesting sound for a different type of track when you use it in your own tracks. Let's add in our filter. And this one is a 24 decibels per octave, also SMP, and we're also adding roughly 9 decibels of drive, but in this case we're adding 46% of resonance, and we're setting it to a bass frequency of 260. And we still need to apply envelope number 2 on this filter, so let's quickly look at the shape here. We have again 2 milliseconds attacks, 61 milliseconds decay, sustain all the way down, release short to 13%, and the matrix applies envelope number 2 100% on the filter here, and also we apply envelope number 1 also 38% on the filter. And within a second, we're also going to look at LFO number 1, but let's quickly activate oscillator 2, which uses the Wavetable saw harmonics from the basics. So this one here, and we set that one to modern, set it to -5 decibels here to 48% there, and set the warp to roughly 40%. Okay, and now let's look at LFO number 1. This one is set to triangle, and then we bring up the shape to 100% here, set the amount to 100% and set the rate to 1/4. And then we go into the matrix and apply it. Oscillator to position, 64%, on oscillator to gain, which is this one, 70%, and on the filter frequency, 47%. So we are moving all this stuff around while the sound is being triggered. Okay, and let's take a look at the effects here. We have the saturator set to sinusoid fold drive, 9 decibels up. We have 40% dry wet here. Let's play it. basically beefing up the sound. Let's go into the echo next to it here. This one is set to 16th notes, dotted on the left, notes on the right, feedback to 50%, dry wet to 33%, and the filter up to 600 and the high cut set to 5.8K. And on top of that, some characteristic reverb with a decay time of 2.7 seconds. This just to give it the initial room. We have the dry wet set to 40% here. And then later we're adding in this whole lead and it will sound like this. And you have this whole reverb tail. So the last one here is this EQ cleaning up the low end, emphasizing a little bit on 3 kilohertz here with almost 7 decibels boost. And then we are carving out around 8 kilohertz. Okay, going back to the front, you can play around with the filter now. And you can play around with the decay of the amplifier. And you can also go to oscillator 1 and play around with the amount here slightly. Let's actually play together with the other sound. Add in the whole lead on top. And so we have the long reverb tail. And now let's go back to the group and add in those 2 EQs. This one really turning off some of the high end here with -6 decibels. And this one just surgically removing a resonant frequency that's kind of due to the notes. So this is our sound here. So what else can we do with the sound? I have a different version of the project file here playing a different melody, and I'm taking the amplifier decay on the higher lead sound a bit shorter. So it sounds like this. And in this case, I'm taking the decay time on the higher notes a bit shorter because I want to emphasize on the pluckiness of the sounds. If I'm playing lower sounds, I can play the decay time a bit longer, like here.
Substances.
And then with the first sound we looked at, you can play around with the FM amount in the first oscillator. Or you can also play around with an auto pan, set that one to chaos and blend the amount in over time. So a lot of options here, quite a complex sound. Leave a comment below what else you want to know about the sound. Check out the link in the description to the Wavetable preset pack where I'm including all these sounds, and also to the alternative project file of this track called Substances. Consider liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you next time.
Substances. Waiting for insertion, exertion, or craving resistance.